Good morning, everyone. Should be around 8 a.m. Saturday, June 20th. And we are doing I think it's our third, but our second schedule. The first one we did was just kind of, hey, that was a good idea. Somebody asked me and we did it. But this is the second week in a row we have done an investor-led Q&A session. Again, we did this because each of you who are following and watching the daily financial news did what I asked, and that was hit the thumbs up button. We averaged over 100 thumbs up on the daily financial news for 7 days straight. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think as we continue to average over 100, I will continue to do these question and answers. So if you are watching this video, first and foremost, let's hit a thumbs up. This one is likely going to be 50 to 55 minutes in duration, so it's going to be a long one. It will be solely done based on your questions. I'm actually just going to run through them in the order that I received them. So again, if you want to be a part of next Saturday's questions, you can leave a question below in this video once it is live, or on any of the daily financial news videos, which again are posted every day about 7:30. On Thursdays, we do them a little bit earlier because we have Jonathan Twanley's interview set up in the morning. So without further ado, we will just jump in. Again, no order to these questions. Some of them will be similar, but there's a little tweak to them. And again, they were asked and I owe you my answers. So first and foremost, I'll be looking away because I'm going to read the questions first. First one is, how are your rent collections for your duplex, triplex, and fourplexes? What are the tenants doing? Are they still paying? So I will answer that specific question, but then I will break it down to hopefully help others as well. I'll follow up the question with what is going on with houses, single family homes. Then we'll talk about small residential duplexes through fourplexes, and then we'll talk about apartments, 5 units and above. So first and foremost, I have not noticed a dip in my my small duplex, triplex, and quads. I have 25 to 30 units that meet that criteria. I have lots of I have several duplexes, several tris, and a couple of quads. So I've not noticed a difference. I would tell you rent collection in those are in the high 90s, let's say 95, 96%. So I've not seen a noticeable dip in those. So I think this question is coming from someone who's looking to house hack, or they want to get approved for a residential loan, but get the best rates. It's what it seemed like the question was, hence duplexes, tris, and quads. I would tell you that, not all duplexes, tris, and quads are created equal. I would look for an opportunity to create or to have space. I think that's one thing that's been very clear in this, right? If you got a fourplex that was kind of like all just like a big rectangle, that's going to be less desirable than maybe, two duplexes in a courtyard in the middle, something of that nature. So I would be looking today for what tenants want, and tenants want space. And space could just be yards, right? If you could cordon off yards appropriately. Several of mine, I've created small yards. I actually did this years ago because a yard was important for me growing up. So there's several units that I have where I actually carved it up and said, this is your front yard, this is your yard, as opposed to just keeping it open. I tried to create separate space, which is, proven to be a good idea. I did that years ago. So again, rent collection has not been noticeably different. I would say that my best rent collection is single family homes. Single family homes are in the 98 percentile. Again, I think this is normal. I think single family homes typically have the highest rent collection in my portfolio. The fact is that people always want space. In a single family home, if you get in trouble, you can invite roommates, you can invite family to come live with you. You have space, unlike an apartment. I have found through 20 years of investing that people fight harder to pay rent in houses. That has historically been my best rent collection, and it holds true today. My lowest rent collection is in my multifamily, my units, 5 units and above. I would say rent collection in there is in the low to mid 90s, maybe 93 to 95%. And it's all about space. The people that can move, right? So we have people that are, breaking leases and moving to houses. We do have, lots of people that were impacted by losing of restaurant and retail jobs. But again, with the unemployment benefits and the like, rents have surprisingly been strong. If you go back on this channel, you will know that around March 15th, I was kind of nervous and we did a full audit and we identified high risk and all of those things. And we were prepared for rent collections in the 70s. So to see 3 months in a row in the mid 90s when you average it all out has been a welcome surprise. We will see if that continues. But to date, that's where rent collection has been. So that's question number one. Oh, next question is, has real estate been getting more popular in the last 5 to 10 years? Question two, if yes, does it make it harder to wholesale? So first and foremost, real estate investing goes in cycles. We happen to be in an up cycle. This cycle that we have been through is very, 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 very similar to what I experienced 2004 to 2006. The result is different. In the first period, everybody wanted to flip. There were people flipping contracts and making 20 to 40 grand because financing was so wonky. But yes, when people are making money in real estate and they are celebrating it on social media and telling their friends and TV shows are created, it attracts people. People are attracted to quote unquote easy money. And as long as the gurus are out there talking about wholesaling and virtual wholesaling and astro flipping and all of those other things, more interested parties will be attracted. If you go back and look at the numbers of real estate agents, I think it peaked in 2006 or 2007 for the same exact reasons. It was easy, right? Get a listing, it was sold. So yes, real estate investing has gotten more popular in the last 5 years. And frankly, it got easier or got more popular in 10 years. The trend has been like this. The easy money was made in 2010. I've been very, very clear about that on this channel, that my best year ever was 2010 because everybody was afraid. It's just the reality. Yes, so it has been getting easier. So if yes, does it make it harder or easier to wholesale? To the question B of this. Well, I guess it makes it harder and easier. First and foremost, you have a lot more competition. You have really extremes in competition. So I own a few properties, as everybody knows, and I get mailers almost every day now. And some people are clearly doing their first mailer, and some people have fine-tuned their message. And there's a lot of people wasting money today just doing what gurus say. Go buy a mailing list and send out some postcards and just wait. Wholesaling is a business. It is a job, right? You must continue to market. The people that are doing it great in Fresno continually market. And I know several people spending between $6,000 and $20,000 a month sending out mailers and texting and cold calling. And it is absolutely a job you can do, but it takes money, it takes time, it takes consistency. It is a hell of a lot harder than the gurus make it look. Let's just be very, very clear. The easy money was made 5 years ago. It's just not that way. So it is much harder. On the easier side, let's give some props. There is tons of technology and apps out there that make it easier. If you just wanted to drive for dollars and have no marketing, there are ways to do that. So there are some things in this that make it easier, but it is a surefire way to lose a lot of money and invest and not see a return. So it is absolutely harder. But again, I know lots of people that are very successful at it, but it's not for me, right? I will never be a wholesaler. It's a job. It's a job, right? What I tell you to do is bust your ass during the day, work your 9 to 5, your 8 to 6, whatever it is, make as much money as you can, lower your expenses, and then go buy assets that are conservatively financed and have cash flow. Somebody interviewed me for their channel yesterday and said, what would you tell teenagers? I'm like, you're so lucky. Your expenses will never be so low. Focus on keeping your life expenses low, and you could be financially free by 30. Bust your butt during the day, save, learn your market, do real estate as a side hustle, and then don't expand your expenses. We all do it. It is natural. And how many of us, I mean, I did it. I mean, I only can talk about me. I came from an environment where my family was white trash, right? It's just generically speaking, right? High school educated, never made a lot of money, like 50K or less was a good thing. And I did it, right? I made six figures in my late 20s and I spent it all. It's just dumb. You raise your standard of living to match your income, you're going to be in the rat race forever. So, yeah, that's what I was telling in that interview is keep your expenses low and you could be financially free by 30. It's really not that hard. It's the wanting to flex and buy and buy and buy in this consumer-based economy that gets us in trouble. So don't do that. Next was advice for working with turnkey providers. So a couple of things. First and foremost, your job if you're going to look for a turnkey provider is to vet that provider. Most turnkey providers that I've seen operate in certain markets. Most people that I have seen do this wrong. They pick a market first and then look at the turnkey provider. That is not the way to do it. There are lots of horror stories out there about turnkey providers, frankly, lying and stealing and doing bad things. So you need to research your turnkey providers first and foremost and figure out what they're doing and get the numbers. Because again, let's be clear, they're going to make a profit. They're in the market. They are constantly marketing. And you just need to realize that they're going to make money because again, you're basically don't have time and you need, you're trying to buy something that's fixed up. And again, in my book, let me just grab it, sorry. Here, I talk about the first house I bought on Norris Drive and really my first 5 or 6 houses. I was buying cheap properties and I told you why that was a mistake because I wasted my cash. So I think buying turnkeys is great, but please, please don't be taken advantage of. Research the turnkey provider first and really research them. Talk to clients, talk to people that have been doing it for years. Talk to people in the market that have no connection to the turnkey provider. Really find out if they're a good company. Because again, when it goes bad, it goes really bad. Then after you vet the turnkey provider, then you can talk about the market. Don't do it reverse. A good turnkey provider can make a bad market good, but a horrible turnkey provider can make the best market in the U.S. be the worst experience ever. So be very careful. I talk about in my course, learn your market, learn your market, learn your market. If you're going to bet on a turnkey provider, it should be learn your provider, learn your provider, learn your provider. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, what are my thoughts on home ownership? That was kind of an open-ended question, frankly. First off, home ownership is what, when I think about my core, it's what saved us. My parents were able to get into a home in Sunnyvale, California. That became the Silicon Valley. And it was the asset that we were able to borrow against to get us through some very rough times. I think home ownership is a way to cement yourself in the middle class. I think it's a forced savings account. I generally think home ownership is something we should strive for. I think it is and can be a big part of your retirement. So I generally think home ownership is good. Again, this was an open-ended question, so I'm taking it where I want. Next, I do think home ownership is going to go up. I think we have been on a downtrend for the last 3 or 4 years. We had a generation, generically speaking, of the millennials who wanted more freedom, right? So they were renting, right? They just wanted, plus, let's be clear, right? They were right at that young adult age when the Great Recession happened, and they got some scars, right? They may not be specifically hit by it, but their family was. So let's cut them a break, right? But we're seeing now is they're coming out. They were very they like the vertical living in big cities. They like the nightlife, the clubs, all of that. That is clearly over. They're starting families and realizing that big cities with homeless problems on the street like San Francisco is not cool. So I think homeownership is going to go up several points for the next couple of years. They're going to get cheap debt. Somebody told me yesterday they got a 30-year loan at 2.75%. That's amazing. I mean, that's like free money, man. We're going to have inflation at some point. I do think inflation will have a 2 on it for years to come once it starts. That means you're getting free money for 30 years. That's amazing. So I generally think homeownership is a path to a better financial future. I think the stats that we read online show that. And again, I think it's a forced savings account. I really don't see a downside. I mean, I think generally speaking, home ownership is a path to a better future. I do think maybe this question was, should I buy a home primary residence first or buy a rental first? That could have been this question. Again, it was very vague. That really depends on you, the person, right? I generally don't have an opinion on buying your first home. That's not an investment decision. But if you're going to live somewhere for at least 10 years, and in today's environment, I think home ownership is a good thing. I will caveat that the Bay Area in New York today, I don't know that I would commit to Bay Area in New York. I think prices are going to fall big time. So if I was 30 or whatever again and I had some money saved up, I think I'd rent for another year in San Francisco or the Bay Area or New York because I think I'm going to get a better price next summer. That's just what I think. But if you're in the rest of the country, I think if you're going to live there for 10 years, you'll be okay. There's a couple of markets. And LA or SoCal is probably in that as well. So I think that is interesting. So next up is, what is your advice for a new investor who's bank ready? I assume that means mortgage approved. Has the down payment, congratulations. Reserves, awesome, you're set. VA loan eligible. I believe, I don't know this for sure, but I believe a VA loan means that's only good for owner occupant. I could be wrong, but I think that's true. But is on the sidelines trying to learn your market. So this is what I would tell you. First off, cut yourself a break. You have done some amazing things. You are in a great financial position. Again, I have no idea what market you're in, but I would tell you this market is this is the most unbalanced market I've seen in 20 years. If I was just starting out and I was, again, I'll use the casino analogy, right? I don't know that I would walk up to the roulette wheel today because it is so unnatural. The odds seem to be skewed not in your favor because supply is so low. Again, if your market is different than mine and your supply is close to average, then maybe this is not truth. But go look it up. Go look what the active listings were for your market in, say, December of 2019. In my market, they're 30% below. In December 2019 was already a record low. So it's really, really hard. I wouldn't buy something today unless it just fell in my lap, right? I bought that 3-house property, which I've talked about on this podcast or this YouTube video many times. It fell in my lap. They called me because of my reputation. If that listing had gone on the open market, it would have been bid up to 225 to 240 grand instantly. And I got it for 175. So today, that doesn't happen to a lot of people. I realize how lucky I am. But just keep learning your market. And if I were to tell you one metric to watch is go get the active listings. Figure out what it is today, assuming your market's like mine, and wait for that to double. This market is going to shoot through the roof if listings stay below. And let me be clear, right? Some of you hear me say that and you're like, well, why don't I get involved? Well, if you're following one rental at a time, I don't bet on appreciation. I did a video yesterday about yield on my first property. And hopefully that told you something. I bought it with a yield of, I forget, 10%, I think, or 12 or something. And it shot up because everybody was buying, and it eventually became negative 10%. And in my book, that's an alligator, right? No cash flow, alligator. Be careful, folks. This is the time to be careful. What I would tell you is you are walking into the casino with a huge chip stack and are in a great position. Congratulations. Keep walking through the casino and go sit in your hotel room or go by the pool. The market's not fair today. It is very easy to make a mistake. So keep looking. And if you're going to watch something, watch active listings because eventually that's going to have to go up. And if it gets back to normal, then we can have a conversation. But sometimes you got to be patient. I'm patient. I did one deal the last 3 months that fell in my lap. I have the cash to do lots more, but I'm not going to. And I'm not going to do that even though I expect the market to go up, right? But I don't bet on appreciation. I need to be able to hold an asset forever. I don't want to buy a house because I think it's going to go up 10%, but it's negative cash flow. That's not me. Read my book, right? I had a friend in the book that I talk about who said, I can afford to have 5 negative cash flow properties. And oh, look at me, I'm going to be a millionaire soon. That did not turn out well, right? I will never do that. Okay. So hopefully that answers that multi-part question. Next, prices keep going up. What the hell? What the hell? That was funny. Would you buy a duplex in the Bay Area, San Jose, or Santa Clara? So first and foremost, this investor clearly is in the Bay Area. I think Bay Area prices are about to fall. Rents are coming down. Cap rates are going to rise. That's a horrible combination. I just did a report on the Daily Financial News that had Mountain View rents down 16%. So I believe prices in San Jose and Santa Clara are going to be lower in 6 months. So yes, in the short term, prices do appear to be up, but the Bay Area is, it's not healthy. It has 16% unemployment. It has falling rent prices. It has an exodus of people, more people leaving than coming. None of these are set up well. So I guess what I would tell you is sit tight. If you really are dead set on investing in the Bay Area, it will be cheaper in a year than today. That's what the numbers say. What about a duplex in the Bay Area? I think living in the Bay Area is a wonderful thing to do. I do say that owning something I bought in '99, so with respect to that, take it for what it's worth. I don't think I would be buying, I wouldn't be buying a single thing in the Bay Area. I think California is in trouble for 5 to 8 years. I think the Silicon Valley is in trouble probably for 3 to 5 years. Right? I think the Silicon Valley recovers first before the broader California. But yeah, I can't think of any good news for being a landlord in the Bay Area today. It's going to be painful, but again, where there's pain, there could be deals, right? If you find a duplex from an owner who bought, this is the one exception. There are a lot of small mom and pop landlords in the Bay Area, and maybe they bought their duplex in 1970s or 1980s, and they're older and they just want out, and maybe they'll sell it to you at a discount. Yeah, maybe that makes sense if you can buy it at a steep enough discount, but boy, you better be conservative on rents. If Mountain View could go down 16% and Mountain View's a mile away from Google, what could happen? So be careful. All right, that's page 1. What do we got for page 2? Thought on best and worst case for my portfolio. Well, thank you for asking. I'm not really sure where this question was going, but I'll take a stab. So I think the worst case for my scenario is unemployment benefit from the Fed is not extended, so it ends July 31st. I would tell you that probably means my economic occupancy, which means paying tenants, goes from, let's say, 95%. I think worst case could be 75%. That would hurt, no question. But the good news is the 75% would be the bottom, and we would slowly work our way out of that for a couple of years. It would take a couple of years, no doubt, worst case. We have our portfolio financed and constructed so that we could survive that pretty easily, frankly. But that's because, again, if you've watched the channel, read our book, we've been managing our portfolio, right? What did I do in 2019? I sold apartments that were overpriced and would be horrible to carry through the next recession. If we still had those 50 or so units, whew, ooh, I wouldn't even want to think about it. So I am very glad that I watch my market every day. It's what I teach my students: learn your market, learn your market. So I'm very happy we sold those. We've raised our cash reserves. So I think worst case, 75% economic occupancy, and it takes 2 years to get back to greater than 90%. We also probably have, in the worst case, some rent deflation. Probably not a lot, but we'd have some, I would guess. So I think that's worst case. Again, total worst case scenario, we probably sell a couple of houses that we have free and clear to raise cash, probably. So again, totally survivable, but that's because we managed, we're not over leveraged, we didn't bet on appreciation. We trim our portfolio when assets are high, sell when people want to overpay. I'm happy to let them. Yeah. And then best case, I think we're living the best case right now. I don't think it can get any better. We have great occupancy. We rent stuff fast. Most tenants are paying. It's not meaningfully different than last year this time. We've actually had rent increases, although it hasn't happened the last 2 months. But the inventory for what we build and the quality that we have, you can't see it anywhere else. Nobody else in Fresno, at least at scale, does anything that we do. We literally take slumlord properties and turn them into the best thing people rent, and they want to stay. So yeah, I think that's the best case. And again, I think I've been clear. I plan to buy 20 to 40 houses over the next 2 to 3 years because I think houses are going to go up. I'm not doing that today, back to one of the earlier questions, because supply is so low and I'm not going to get in bidding wars, and I can't compete with owner occupants. When an owner occupant will bid 215 for a house that's worth 199 that I couldn't pay 169 for, I can't compete, and I'm okay with that. But I do hope to buy 20 to 40 single family homes in the next, call it 2.5 years. And what will happen in 5 years is I will 1031 exchange out of houses into apartments. The multifamily market in Fresno is overpriced. It is still overpriced. It hasn't been long enough. We have a great chasm between what owners think they're worth and what I think they're worth. And nothing will force that than a long slog recession, rent deflation, poorly financed construction on debt. And I plan to buy a bunch of multifamily in 5 to 8 years. In our portfolio, we're double or triple unit count wise. It's a pretty simple game plan. I wrote about it in the book. It's what got us the first 80 units. It's set up the same way, folks. I don't know what else to tell you. You just got to be patient. We all want deals today. It's only been 3 months, and there's been no rent problems, right? Yeah. So just be patient. So that's that question, I think. Advice for past self. That's always a fun one. Again, I think I wrote about this in the book. If you haven't read it, pick it up. If you have read it, let me take a minute. Please go to Amazon. Please, please, please go to Amazon or Audible if you like to listen to books, and leave a review. I do all these things for free. So if you can take 30 to 60 seconds to leave a 5-star review, I would greatly appreciate it. We broke 200 reviews on Amazon, which is pretty darn good for a self-published book. So thank you, thank you, thank you for the first 200. But I know it's sold nearly 5,000 copies now. We should have a lot more reviews. So if you could do me that favor as a way to say thank you to me for this 30 minutes of free time already, I would appreciate it. Again, Amazon or Audible would be greatly appreciated. Also, there's 38 of you on the watching this right now, and there's only 13 thumbs up. What the heck? Come on, help me out. Sorry, I digress. So advice for my past self. The first thing is, if I were to talk to my 23-year-old self. So I just graduated college, was married, if you can believe that, was married at 19. Um, I would tell you to watch your, I don't know what you would call it, expense inflation. I got a little high on my own supply. I started making more money than my parents, and it got to my head. I remember buying a 3000 GT, Mitsubishi 3000 GT pearl white twin, turbo. It's fast car. Um, I remember that car cost more than my salary. It was stupid to buy. So I did some really dumb financial things. So I would talk about that. Live, set some kind of base expenses when you're 22 or 23, and try to keep that even until you're 30. Man, life, financial freedom is right on your doorstep. That would be awesome. So that's what I would tell my youngest self. What I would tell my 30-year-old self who started investing in real estate is, given that lending was easy, I should have bought cleaner properties. In today's world, it would be called turnkey, right? I would get fixated on price. And I did that for 5 years. Price, it's always price. I didn't respect cash. That was a problem. So I would buy a property 10% down, and then I would spend that much or more fixing it up. And that just meant I wasted cash. Cash was my greatest constraint in the beginning. In a lending market that was that easy, I should have bought cleaner. And I wanted price because I believed all these books about forced appreciation and all that nonsense. Again, I don't believe in appreciation. One appraiser can look at a property and think X, and another appraiser can think Y. And then if you ever want to see what value is, try to do a Burr project today. You think your ARV is 200, but the appraisal comes in at 165. Whoops! Guess you left a lot of equity in that building. I don't believe in appreciation. And all these people that talk about appreciation they don't know how to buy cash flow. They're being lazy. Conservative finance, cash flow, hold for the long term. If you're going to follow one rental at a time, that's what it is. So that's probably what I would tell myself. Anything else? Oh, the other thing is, I wasted a year looking in the Silicon Valley, because everybody I read at the time, there was no YouTube, was invest in your backyard, right? The saying was 30 minutes from home. I'm in the Silicon Valley. That didn't make sense in 2002. I should have found Fresno a year earlier. There's no question I would have been bigger, have more units if we would have started earlier. So I guess those are the three things I would tell myself. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, here's an interesting question. What could motivate me to go back to a W-2? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. I've had tremendous opportunities come my way, ridiculous salaries, growth, VP positions to do this or that, right up my alley, things I'm very, very good at. And no thanks. Part of it's because whatever reason, I don't need to increase my status, my standard of living. I'm kind of comfortable where I am. And a lot of people make fun of me, right? There's a lot of people on social media that think you have to get bigger because you can, right? You owe it to yourself to get as big as you can, right? So you can do this or that. No, if the ladder is 20 rungs, I've gotten to rung 9 and I'm okay. I don't need to do the next 11. I'm going to sit on rung 9. Some people are going to call me a total loser. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But I'm going to reach down and try to pull people up from rung 5 and 6. And if I can get them to rung 9, great. If you go past me, more power to you. That's awesome. Your success means nothing to your success doesn't hurt me. I wish you nothing but luck. So again, there's absolutely nothing. And part of that's because we've set up our portfolio for the worst case scenario, which we talked about 3 or 4 questions ago. If the worst case scenario comes and we go to an economic occupancy of 75%, it will be uncomfortable, but We'll be fine because we have stuff paid off. We have this, that. It'll be okay. But there is nothing, I mean, nothing that can make me go back to a W-2. And I've been offered packages of several $100,000 and huge options or stock and all these things. There's nothing. I'm having too much fun helping people. So, no, nothing. 1031. Can you talk about 1031s, timelines, and all of that? So I have to be careful here. 1031 exchange is something that is, the rules are very rigid. They are written by the IRS. I have not done a 1031 exchange, or I did lots of them in 2006 and 7. I've only done one recently. But I will talk about it from my experience. Do not take this as gospel. Do not take this as the letter of the law. Go research it. First and foremost, 1031 exchange, what is it? It is the ability to sell an investment property and do a like-kind exchange, meaning you can sell an investment property and get another investment property. You can sell a house and get an apartment. You can sell an apartment and get a bunch of houses. It has to be like kind. So you can't sell a rental house and buy an owner occupant. No. It has to be like kind. So look that up if you don't know what that is, like kind exchange. The second thing is there are some dates or timelines, and there are two that I recall. I believe you have 45 days from the close of the first sale to identify your exchange candidates, and you can and should identify multiple. And then you have 6 months to close on one of those identified properties. The money from the sale of that first asset will sit in an intermediary. You can think of it like escrow. It is not title. It is some intermediary company that is specifically designed to facilitate 1031 exchanges. You cannot not touch that money. If you touch that money, it is instantly taxable. And you have to go bigger is the last thing I recall. So if you're selling something at 200, you have to go bigger, right? The total of what you exchange into has to be bigger. That is what I recall from the 1031 exchange. Why is that cool? It's because you get to do the exchange with no tax consequences. So I sold Norris Drive, which I've talked about 100 times, for 264. It had an equity gain of over 100 grand. I was able to move all of that equity into an apartment building, tax-free. Uncle Sam did not get their piece. And if I hold that 5-unit building until I die, it will never be taxed because it then goes through an estate and all of that. So again, that's what I recall. That is a 5% summary of what a 1031 exchange is. You need to go research it. It is very, very helpful. It is what I use to dance through raindrops because I believe single family homes and multifamily homes have different cycles. Housing can go up and multi down, multi can go up and housing can go down. They're not in sync. So first I sold houses when they were crazy high, moved into apartments. Just recently I sold an apartment and bought a bunch of houses, right? So again, you can use a 1031 exchange to your advantage. But go research it because it's written by the IRS. So there are some freaking hard rules to follow and get some help if you're ready. Okay. Have I considered putting my cash reserves in a permanent life insurance policy? First off, I think the person who sent this is trying to sell me something, which not cool. But second, no, I don't put my cash reserves anywhere other than a bank account. And I usually spread them out to make sure I'm under the FDIC limits. And you can call me lazy, go for it. I want my cash reserves the most liquid. I don't put them in bonds. I don't put them in CDs. I don't put them in REITs. I don't put them in the market anywhere, obviously. I don't put them in insurance policies. They are literally sitting in a high yield savings account. I think one of them is called a money market account below the FDIC limits at several different institutions. Again, you could call me lazy. Totally okay with that. I'm sure I could get a better return on my cash, but that's not where my focus is. And again, no, I have not put my cash reserves in some insurance policy. I have not done that. And I guess I'll admit, I don't even know what that is, right? I don't know why that would be considered a good thing. So, in fairness to the person asking, I don't know the upside. I can tell you I would never do it. It's just the conservative nature. Frankly, anything that seems to be good to be true makes me nervous. Just who I am, I guess. Do I only buy out of the MLS? That's a good question. And I'll answer that question two ways. So up until the day I retired, which I think was February 1st of 2018, I had only I'd gotten everything we ever bought out of the multiple listing service. And you could think of that as Realtor, Redfin, Zillow, blah, blah, blah. There were only two properties we didn't buy out of the MLS. So I bring that up because you can absolutely build a rental portfolio if you learn your market, you're consistent, you can find deals. I had a subscriber of this channel, actually a student of mine, tell me about how he learned his market out of state, right? He had tried to do it in state and had no success. He finally took the course serious and looked out of state. And after 30 or 45 days of not getting it, he stumbled across the Duplex and he just closed on it. Yes, today's Saturday, right? Yesterday. So again, you can learn your market. You just got to do the work, folks. Do the work. And if you don't know what I mean, after this is posted or any of my daily financial news, look at the outline of the course. It is helping people every day, and it's the best thing I've created. So again, you can absolutely do this out of the MLS. Now, post-retirement, right? Post February 1st, 2018, I would say 40% of my purchases were out of the multiple listing service. I have more time. I did a lot of wholesale transactions because I have cash and I can actually close quick. So I'm about 60-40 mix today, non-MLS to MLS. But again, if I was still working, you can absolutely learn your market. It is tough to do it, right? To some of the earlier questions, today's not a normal market. Listings are so far below normal. Don't hurt yourself. Don't be crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously nice to have multiple channels to buy real estate, but it's not impossible to buy entirely out of the multiple listing service, Realtor, Redfin, Zillow. Do I have a minimum yield? You bet your butt I have a minimum yield. That is what my entire course and my investing career is about. And oh, by the way, my minimum yield changes, which wasn't in this question. My minimum yield back kind of like 06, 07 was 10%, right? And that's why I got out of houses. Guys, look at the video I did yesterday. Stuff was selling with a -10. -10, that's crazy. So again, yield is the most important metric for me. That is what that's the whole thing I'm trying to teach you in the course. My minimum yield I looked for in 2010 was 15%. 1.5. It was crazy. It was a great time to buy. My minimum yield today is 7%. And it changes all the time. And it's why I can't buy anything today unless it's off market and falls in my lap. People are overpaying. Owner occupants, it's why this channel exists, because I'm watching what the consumer is doing. Consumers can get in for 3.5% and overpay. They're buying 199 houses for 215 that I can't buy for 170. I can't win. It's hard to get cash flow in a stupid market like this. But yes, I have a minimum yield. It is what I teach. Every market has a minimum, or every market has an average. And if you're not doing the work, that's on you. This is the time to learn. This is the most chaotic market I've seen in 20 years. How can you be a new investor and not understand what your market produces? It's a recipe to make mistakes. You know, if you buy a house in Fresno today as a rental, you're overpaying. Unless you got an unusual transaction. You're competing with owner occupants that can overpay. I don't know what to tell you. So yes, I always have a minimum yield. And today it's 7%. Will it change in the future? Absolutely. The market will change. But I look every day. It's hard to compete with me in Fresno because I look every day. So do your homework. Learn your market. Could I cover another market like Bakersfield or any other market? Because I got this question a couple of different ways. I'm happy to have conversations about other market. I can talk intelligently about investing, But to think I could do a deep analysis of any other market, even Bakersfield, which is about 90 minutes or so from Fresno, it would be disingenuous. I don't know it in any detail. I haven't watched it ever, right? Let alone for 20 years. Um, yeah, so the answer is no. I am not going to risk my reputation talking about a market I don't know. But again, I would gladly have a conversation with an investor in that market, whether it be a broker or other investor. I would want to understand active listings. I'd want to understand rent, the job market. I want to know what prices were doing in '08 and then 2010, which were points in my history that I know were different. So no, thank you for asking. I would love to give you more opinions about other metros, but I don't have the history, and I can promise you I am not going to spend the time learning another market because I value my time, and I'm not going to put my money in another market. So I'm sorry. Next, does minimum wage, population growth affect housing? What about the Fed? So minimum wage doesn't really impact owner occupants, but it does impact rentals. As in the minimum wage has increased in Fresno, you can see the bottom end of the market come up. Basically, basically prices rise as minimum wage increases. And if you're buying apartments, that means values go up, right? Because cap rates, NOI, all of that stuff. So that does have some impact on rental amounts. Yes. Population. Population does have some increase, but it's more wages, it's more jobs, right? Because population could be lots of different things. It's jobs. Job growth is important. That's what I would look for. And then there was kind of a caveat to this question. The Fed is printing money. Yeah, there is no question. They're not only printing money, but they're creating lending programs, and they're dominating lending programs. And they're buying mortgage-backed securities hands over fists. So that's one of the reasons that I think the owner-occupant market is increasing. That's why we're seeing 30-year money below 3% is because the Fed is saying, give me everything you got. So I do think the Fed's printing of money is going to increase home prices. I think in most parts of the country, housing prices are going to go up. Again, I've said it 100 times now. Ex San Francisco, ex New York, ex Bay Area, ex LA, who will see declines. Most of the country, prices are on fire. I see it all the time in my groups. Most states, inventory is record low and prices are flying off the shelf. Bidding wars are happening. It's everywhere. Next, I have cash, want to buy something, but there are no deals. Welcome to the club. I have more cash today than I've ever had in my investing career, and there are no deals. And here's what I don't get in your question. I want to applaud you for not doing something stupid. It sounds like you know what a deal is in your market. Congratulations, you did the work. Sometimes you got to be patient. In my book, I've talked about 2 times where we didn't do any deals. One was at the peak and one was at the bottom. It's uncomfortable. We were deal jockeys, right? It was always about the next deal. But sometimes when the market gets wonky, you just got to sit back and go, what the hell is going on? And I think today in most markets, it's what the hell is going on? It's crazy. And it won't get better until listings increase. It's just the way it is. So again, have cash you want to buy, but there are no deals. I'm going to take that to mean you've done what I talk about in my course. You've learned your market. Congratulations. If your market is average of 7 and you can't find anything that's a 5 or 6, don't do a deal. Keep looking. It will eventually change. The market changes all the time. You and I want it to change like the stock market, which is every minute of every hour of every day. Real estate is far slower, and it will be far more irrational longer because it's a slow cycle. But it will turn, I promise. I can't tell you when, but it will turn. So keep doing it, and congratulations, you're doing the right thing. Okay, next. I think it's the last question I have here. How do you read 30 minutes a day on your market? So this person is taking on this 75-day hard challenge which I forget what number that is. I think it's number 4. What I did is I was lucky enough to be in a market that had a local paper, so I can always read the local section. I went to the government site, in my case, like Fresno.gov or something of that nature. I went to the universities because, again, I'm just trying to get all of the data. Basically, again, I never spent the night in Fresno. So I read everything I could. I read about the university, Fresno State football program. I was reading everything I could to figure out energy for that program. And then I would read the local paper. I would read any announcements. I would do keywords. I would do keyword searches in bigger pockets just to see if something's coming across. But it's absolutely something you can do. Next was what jumped out at you at your spreadsheet. For me, the biggest aha moment in the beginning was how much an impact Make Ready has. And that's what told me that buying cheap was the wrong idea, right? Make Ready has a big impact because that's just a lot more cash and sometimes could be as big or bigger than the down payment, depending on how junky the house is. So that helped. And then seller financing. How'd you get it? First off, I asked. But you only can ask in pretty special situations. If the owner owns it free and clear, you can get seller financing. It is there. It's usually a way for them to adjust tax consequences and the like. But yeah, so you got to be, the right situation has to present itself and you have to ask. So that was definitely very key. So those are all the questions I got for the day. I want to thank you for getting the thumbs up. I do got to say we have 51 people watching this and only 28 thumbs up. So do me a favor. I got to open the door for my puppy who's been nice enough to sleep this whole time, but now has to get out. So that's good. So do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, and we will talk to you next week, assuming we hit 100 thumbs up on the daily financial news. And if you're one of my students, yes, I will be ready for you on Facebook here in about 5 minutes. Take care, everyone. Bye.